So how you been? How you been since A&E? You got any fun stuff going on? Did you check out SHOT Show?
No, unfortunately, being a two-person operation, I don't get the luxury of staying an extra week in Vegas. So,
Yeah, right.
um,
Same here.
if they did it like the first time I went, where there's no gap, then I would try and pick up at least one day a shot show. But I couldn't swing both of them this year.
Yeah. Next year, I think it's going to be lined up better, and I think I'm going to do the same thing. Maybe just go walk the SHOT Show one day. I've never been, so it's
I
about
haven't
time.
either. For me, it's more the people you can meet there.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Lots of interesting folks in that industry, and it'd be fun to I don't know,
Yeah,
meet some folks, do some collaborations, whatever. That's how it happens. Meet people in real life, and then you have a real connection. Just emails don't quite
here
cut
we
it.
are.
Yep. Um, so yeah, so the point of this podcast basically is I just like to talk to people who are, in the military surplus industry and sort of get a feel for how they got started and what their stories are. And I know you've got a very interesting history with this stuff, and I'd, just love to hear a little bit more about it. You've been working with us now since about 2023. How long has 1-3 surplus been around?
Uh, we started in May of 22.
Okay, so you're about 3 years into this now.
Yeah, it'll be 3 years in May this year. It's been a
Nice.
ride.
Yeah, yeah. A lot has happened in the last 3 years for sure.
Yeah.
I've been curious, what's the name One Thief Surplus? Where's that come from?
So, uh, it started as a joke. So, for me personally, when I started this business, most of my career paths previously, like many people, have been very, very serious. Um, and I decided I wanted to make people laugh. And
Yeah,
being in the military surplus industry, most of our target audience is either current, former, or retired military. And the running joke in the Marine Corps is there's no thief, or there's only one thief. Everybody else is trying to get their stuff back.
oh yeah, nice.
And so there's not really it's a culture of stealing, I guess, is what you would say on the outside. But in the Marine Corps, it's like, if something that you have goes missing or gets broken, the supply system sucks and they make it so difficult to go get a replacement. It's easier to go acquire it from somebody else that's not paying that close attention to their gear. And so that's how things kind of happen.
They just move
And
around.
yeah, it
That's
never really leaves the organization. It just kind of, goes where it's needed.
You're just sharing. Sharing is caring, right? So yeah, how'd you get into military surplus? Where did it start? A lot of people just start with like personal collections and figure they need to offload some of it and kind of snowballs from there. And then other people set out to start a business.
For me, I had kids, and I and specifically have a son, and we like to spend a lot of times outdoors. But if you've looked at camping gear and hiking gear and the prices of the civilian gear these days, um, it can be prohibitive very quickly if you want to go get quality gear. Not from Walmart, not from Cabela's. And you want to go get something quality that's durable that can go stand up to years of use. So I started thinking about the gear that I was issued in the Marine Corps, and we were issued. The Marine Corps is very good about getting off the shelf uh, systems instead of going and having it developed and created and whatever. So, like the ruck that I was issued in the Marine Corps is designed by Arc'teryx. It's the very common Ilby rucksack, and it's a very good rucksack for what it is. Heavy, but it's a very quality, well designed rucksack. And so I started by buying some of that stuff, the newer Philby, and I started buying stuff that I would use because at that point it's a lot easier to be um, it's a lot easier to sell when you're excited about it
Oh yeah, yeah.
and
You
when
know
you go
everything
use it
about it
yourself.
already.
And for me, my kind of niche that I try and stay in with surplus is camping and outdoors gear, and I want to educate people that aren't military into understanding why it could be a good cost-effective option, especially in this economy. They can put together a hunting trip to go out west using a military surplus rucksack and save himself $1,000. You know, not So it's kind of where my little niche in this world is.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're looking for like a name brand piece of gear, getting it on the military surplus market, you're going to get it for a fraction of the price of a brand new
We
one.
sell a lot of like stuff like Mystery Ranch and you know um, Granite Gear, and a whole bunch of those other Cry. You get them for pennies on the dollar. I mean, all things considered.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every once in a while we'll get our hands on some like issued Berghaus rucksacks,
Hmm.
and brand new, you're going to spend 600-700 bucks or something like that. And
The
it's,
Europeans, and that's one of my favorite things to buy from you guys is the outdoors gear, pouches and packs and stuff like that. Because man, the Europeans really uh, they really design good rucks and stuff like that. So it's awesome to be able to bring that to this side of the pond and kind of educate people on it too.
yeah, it's interesting. There's like divide's not really the right word, but a lot of people are into surplus, looking at US gear. They're trying to replace the stuff
Hmm.
that they had when they were issued gear, or like the stuff that maybe their dad had in Vietnam or whatever. Kind of goes back. Um, the traditional like Army Navy surplus store where it was a lot of like pawning and consignment and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But to let people know, like, hey, there's a whole world out there of great stuff.
And
Um,
cooler camo patterns.
much cooler camo patterns for sure. Yeah. So, a lot of people that we work with, it's like, hey, you really should try the European stuff too. People will like
Hmm.
it. It's
Oh
good
yeah,
stuff.
that's like I get a lot of the pouches and stuff from you guys. Like that Dutch DPM stuff sells like crazy because it's different, but it's still a woodland kind of pattern, so it works for most of the United States very well. But it's not your normal M81 or multicam or something like that. And a lot of people like to be different, and it kind of dips their toes in the European stuff a little bit. And
Yeah. Yeah, you get like a nice woodland pattern, but it's
mhm.
a little bit different, but it's still like, when you think of camouflage, or at least, growing up when I was thinking of camouflage, first thing that comes to mind is like a woodland DPM, you know,
Mhm.
or just, that typical, you know, uh, GI Joe kind of camo.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think of like Belgian jigsaw or alpenflage or something like that.
I've learned so much starting this business. I didn't even know. I mean, I worked with a lot of those guys, but I never paid attention to their uniform patterns. Like it was just like, oh, well, those are Dutch or those are whatever, those are Brits or whatever. But if you see their camouflage pattern, but you don't, I didn't think about it.
Like look at it, the design of
Yeah,
it. You got other stuff to think about when you're in the Marine Corps
for sure.
than fashion.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, it's been really cool to like just get to meet some more people. I had a different foot into this industry. My dad started this business actually in 1996. It's kind of one of the original importers of the European stuff into the States, and I grew up just kind of around it and seeing it and
Mhm.
everything. Didn't always think I'd get involved, but here I am, trying to just get to know everybody and understand how the industry works. And I feel like things are better when people are kind of connected. I'm a
Absolutely.
firm believer in rising tide rises all ships. There's no room for being competitive, so to speak. I mean, competition is a good thing, but friendly. Like we're all in the
Yeah,
same
no
industry.
need to be cutthroat. It's a small industry.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all still kind of on the same mission of trying to bring the stuff to the masses, so to speak.
Hmm.
Military surplus is kind of a niche thing, and it shouldn't be really. I mean, it's great gear at great prices. Even from the environmental side of things, people like it because it's you're reusing stuff.
Hmm.
Gear that's already issued that would otherwise have been thrown out. Why go buy something that has to be manufactured from raw materials and probably in Asia somewhere when there's great stuff already here?
Yep, absolutely.
You've been doing a lot of great stuff on social media lately. I see your account's kind of growing and getting throwing out the good memes and stuff. A little bit of it's over my head, just a little bit probably Marine Corps specific stuff in there, but
Honestly, no, it's probably not over your head. It's just probably not all that funny. But
I
you're
get
being
out
far
of it.
too you're being far too kind. But no, what I struggle. I don't like social media much, and unfortunately, the nature of my business is we're kind of more of a social media company that sells surplus, like many of them, because that's just how you can e- economically reach a lot of people.
Right.
But the humor aspect of it, for me, it's like I just try and look at micro kind of experiences that I had in the Marine Corps that kind of either horrified me, shocked me, and made me laugh. In retrospect, all of them kind of made me laugh. But when you're experiencing them, they're not. They're much funnier when you're watching somebody else experience them. Not so
Yeah.
much yourself, but trying to come up with creativity is not my thing. It's I struggle with it, but it's so just going back to what I know. like what I experienced myself is it seems to resonate a little bit, maybe.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that have experienced the same stuff, and they're gonna totally get it. Like, oh yeah, I've been there, I've seen that.
Yeah.
That's happened to me or a buddy of mine or whatever. Um, yeah, social media is a big beast. We're kind of going backwards into it. It's kind of funny. Like, Swisslink's been around since 1996. There's been a Swisslink.com has existed since the 90s. It's like early into e-commerce and everything, but very late into social media. Um, we've got a YouTube account with videos posted since like the early 2000s, but we didn't start doing anything regular until like the last year or so. Um, it's
Well,
tough,
I mean,
especially when you're trying to run a whole business and at the same time create content. It's like, geez, where do you carve out the time? But it's so important.
it for me it's critical. I mean, if I don't, I mean, there's a noticeable difference. Like if you go a couple days without posting, it doesn't take long. If you're not constantly putting yourself out there in front of people and getting that, connecting that dot, or the dots with them, it's noticeable. It's quick. Things start kind of.
Yeah, it dies off real quick. We were on TikTok, kind of coincidentally got like I would decided one day that I was going to make a TikTok account for Swisslink, and I didn't really have any content for it. Randomly had a video that went super viral on there, which got us a whole bunch of followers, and then I was like, well, might as well keep using it, keep posting it, and we were up to like, I don't know, 25,000 followers, something like that. And a couple weeks ago, the account got, like, I don't know, hacked or stolen or whatever. Um, I woke up in the morning, I saw a bunch of text messages that were the two-factor authentication codes. I was like, that's weird. I didn't request these. And then I looked at my email, same thing. Like, here's your two-factor authentication and verification codes for TikTok. I was like, what's going on? And I tried to log in. I'm like, oh, there's no account with this email. It's like, what? And I look up our name on TikTok and can't find anything. One of the guys in the office here finally found one of the videos, and it was like some totally random account. Somebody had logged in, changed the password, changed the email, made it their account. I guess just kept the followers and then tried to build it from there. And then like a week later, they were like, "We're going to shut down TikTok," and I was like, "Cool, problem solved. I don't have to worry about it anymore." But that was a short-lived little fiasco. So we've got a
TikTok for
new
me is
account now. Starting.
that's horrifying, to be honest. I mean, from a small business perspective, I know Americana Pipe Dream's been dealing with some really bad stuff too. Like I feel for those guys. I report everything I can because they're getting their entire website replicated and they're running paid ads and stuff like that on social media.
I get
And
those ads. It's
yeah,
crazy.
I report them because that's it's not just them. Yeah, they're a lot bigger company, but at the same time, none of us are huge companies, and if it can happen to them, it can happen to anybody. And that's somebody's livelihood that they're messing with, and it's not here in the states.
Yeah.
And the big social media companies don't do anything about it because they're getting money from the paid ads from the scammers.
Yeah. And like, I mean, honestly, like, Meta is not going to be able to go take down that
Hmm.
account. They should stop the ads from running for sure. They should at least do that. But, it's
Well, I mean, they give me a strike for
hard.
a picture of George Washington, so I don't know why they can't. I don't know why they can't take down a scam account. I caught a 90-day ban on Facebook for literally a historical picture of George Washington,
That's
uh,
crazy. Was there a reason?
accepting. Yeah, they accused me of selling edged weapons. He was returning a salute with a sword. He was on horseback, and it was literally like a Fourth of July post. And yeah, it was like a 90-day ban for like trying to sell edged weapons or something. It's like, okay.
We had a T-shirt that had like a design of a whale on it,
Hmm.
and this was probably 5, 6 years ago. But Facebook was like, "Hey, we can't run ads on this. Like this product isn't acceptable on our platform." And I like dug into it, and finally they said, "You're not allowed to sell animals on Facebook." I was like, "This is a T-shirt with a drawing of a whale. We're not selling actual whales."
It's not even a photo; it's a drawing.
It's like, I don't know how. I mean, I got to put myself in the shoes of like those platforms too. I mean, they probably are dealing with like billions of pieces of content, and they got to rely on automated systems to flag this stuff. And
Yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
how
it's
many things can an actual human look at? I don't know, probably a very small percentage of it.
well, but and you also got to understand that. I mean, from another job that I had, a lot of symbolism means something different depending on who you talk to.
Right.
So one person can't possibly know all the symbolism associated with one logo or one symbol. Like they're not going to know that. They're not experts in that, so they just have to try and play it safe, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I like them, but they got to try and play it safe.
Yeah. Right. I it's funny about symbolism. I was on Shark Tank with my dad,
Hmm.
showing off our storm
That's
bags,
awesome. Yeah.
and yeah, that was a crazy experience. But their like wardrobe requirements were so strict. Like you couldn't have a logo or anything like that. And my dad wears this pendant that he got, I don't know, a lifetime ago. It's just like a Native American eagle,
Hmm.
and they were like, "So what's this like symbol on your necklace here? Like what's that about?" He's like, "Oh, I wear this every day. It's just like it's a Native American thing." And they're like, "Oh yeah, you can't. We can't let you show that because it might offend somebody somewhere that there's some eagle on a necklace."
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but that's big network. They got to play it safe, I guess. But
Yep.
it's a little
Well,
bit
the
over.
bigger you are, the safer you got to play it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Fun thing about having a small business is you get to try things out and kind of do whatever you want. Have some fun and
mhm.
just
You
kind
get
of
to see
find
what
those.
works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Get to iterate quickly. I can't imagine having to run like a social media or marketing platform for a really large company where everything has to be approved by a series of approvers.
My a friend of mine um, does email marketing, and yeah, and he just told me it's miserable because he was doing stuff like Procter and Gamble and stuff like that, like Indianapolis Colts, whatever. These big huge organizations, and one little slip up, and you're talking like 100,000 subscribers out the window. And
Oh yeah, yeah. Like you have one weird subject line
yep,
and you get a million unsubscribers. That's crazy. Yeah,
that's not good.
yeah. Stakes are a lot higher when you got numbers like. Well, you got any big plans for 2025 with One Thief Surplus?
um,
Where you headed?
well, we're actually I hope this year would be the year that we get to go buy an actual location. I've been holding off, trying to see kind of what commercial real estate's going to do and see what the economy is going to do before I go outlay money for something like that. But it'd be nice to have a forklift. I'm tired of carrying everything myself.
You talking about like a warehouse
Yeah.
for your goods and stuff? Or are you thinking about a brick and
Well,
mortar?
we operate out of about 900 square feet right now, which is difficult to do, even with the small number of SKUs that we have. There's just overhead's super low, but so there's always trying to strike that balance between overhead and how much work you have to do to keep it there.
Right.
It's always a balancing act, and
It can get out of control pretty quickly.
yeah.
We we're running into a sort of a space issue right now. We have our warehouse, and then next door to our warehouse, we're renting warehouse space from the neighbors. Just some extra space, which is always useful. But they've just decided that they need the space for themselves, so they're trying to boot us out of there. And I'm like, okay, well, we literally will be hamstrung by the stuff if we like fill up our aisles with
Hmm.
everything from next door. Then it'll take us 10 times as long to pick any order or to get anything. Um, so I'm working on drawing some plans to build like an extension to the back of our warehouse.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to be in the business of storing things.
Yep.
Um, more space means I get to be more relaxed about our inventory. And I'm like, I just need to get this stuff through,
Well, that is the one benefit. I'm under like no illusions. Like we're microscopic in the world of military surplus, and the internet can be a little deceiving, probably. But the one benefit that I've learned out of operating out of a small square footage space, and I mean, we still run 700, 800 SKUs out of that, um, is you have to be very choosy about what you choose to buy and carry. And if it doesn't move, you've got to be quick to adjust the price and get it out the door because you always have stuff coming in. And if you don't have anywhere to put it, you're up a creek. So it forces you to work faster. but you also have to do your best to work smarter,
Right.
to maximize that space.
Yeah, and if you're not careful, you'll end up with a whole warehouse full of like number two condition stuff and extra smalls and like the weird things that nobody wants. And then you're like, why am I storing all of this? I
One of
need
the
to-
first things that I did was that I found worked best for me was I found outlets to wholesale all of that stuff. So if it's not grade one, for the most part, and our grade twos are often overgraded because my rule of thumb is if I would be disappointed to get it, I'm not going to ship it.
right.
And so then that's my baseline. But then I try and err on the side of, okay, let's grade it just a little bit better. But if it doesn't meet that criteria, I don't waste my time with it. It costs more money for me to store it than I'd ever get out of it. I'd be better off throwing it away than hoping somebody wants some damaged tent someday,
Right.
So I'll sell it by the pickup truck load to flea market people, and just get it out, and just take my lumps now instead of taking them a year from now when I'm still sitting on
Yeah,
it.
right. Just have a cleaner warehouse, have a cleaner
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
It's, there's only two of us, it's just my wife and I, so there's only so much time in a day to sort and grade stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that's why you want to get stuff that, find vendors that can give you stuff that's in good
hmm
quality. And,
yep. And that's why
as
we do
this,
business with y'all.
we, we're kind of the first defense against the number twos here. We import stuff in bulk, and sometimes we order specific things. Like we'll go find, okay, we want 200 of these parkas, 500 of these boots, and so on. But other times, someone's like, hey, I got a warehouse full of Austrian goods. I'll sell it to you by the kilo. And we'll go and we'll look at it and kind of see what the quality is. And there's a lot of random stuff in there. And sometimes there's like one really amazing chest rig. And I'm like, well, okay, if I take all the photos, I put it online, like I spend the effort to like market this thing, by the time I sell it, I've lost money on it, even if it is a really nice chest rig. So situations like that, we try to do some fun stuff like, either
Those are
do,
good social media things.
yeah, like do a giveaway or something like that. We just posted one that's live right now, which is just like this random like extreme cold weather mask, which is
Yeah, it's
nightmare
awesome.
fuel, as people say, and like a chest rig and this like polo shirt, just some random stuff. But if I can't think of something like that to do with it, then we'll just we have like number two boxes and one of boxes that are just bulk containers. Either really good stuff that we don't have enough of to list and sell, in which case it's a gold mine for like a flea market person, for example, or
Yep.
somebody with a brick and mortar store that can just throw it in their store and somebody can
Yeah,
see
they
it,
just
grab
take a
it.
whole box and yeah. I'd like to, I've tossed around the idea of doing the whole brick and mortar store. Man, that scares me. I mean, I understand that your average, not your average order value, but your conversion rate tends to be higher in brick and mortar, but so do your headaches.
There's so much to
It's,
consider. I mean,
yeah.
it's just you and your wife, right? So
Mhm.
I mean, if you had a brick and mortar store, you'd probably need another person to be in there, if
Well,
not
and that's the
two.
thing. I mean, we would have to grow at that point. I mean, and
Yeah.
it's life's pretty good the way it is, So it's a difficult decision to make sometimes.
I think about it all the time, especially because of all this like cool stuff that isn't worth listing online. I'm like, a brick and mortar store would be the perfect way to get rid of it. Um, and people are looking for us all the time. We've got all these reviews on Google, which are pretty
Yeah.
much just useful for local, you know, people looking for stores, and they're calling me and like, hey, like, what are your hours? Like, where's your place? I can't find it. I'm like, well, we don't really have a store. You can come by and check it out, and if you want to buy something, we have a local pickup option, that sort of thing. But
Mhm.
you got to worry about theft. Uh,
Liability.
yeah, liabilities, a whole nother set of insurance you got to worry about. Uh, if we had the space for it here, I probably would have already done it, but it's not worth it for me to go and find a
I,
location.
I I know a few local companies that they just keep a trailer and they take it to like gun shows and stuff. Instead of having a brick and mortar store, they go to, you're gonna have 5,000 people walk by your table in a day, or ten
Yeah,
thousand over a weekend, and they'll take all their one off stuff like that. I don't have the time. Gun shows are cheap too. They're like So you guys are in California though, so I don't know. I don't know about that for you guys, but out here in the Midwest, it's like $5 for a table. It's nothing crazy.
Oh, really? They just want people in there, huh?
They need vendors, and they're trying to balance all the Chinese knife makers and the beef jerky with the fewer and fewer FFLs that come in there.
Right.
So you show up with like a big truckload of military surplus. The stuff goes like crazy. It's just you also have to be there to do it. It's no different than a brick and mortar, except you don't have a location. You have to take all your stuff there and then take it
Right.
all back when you're done. So
Yeah.
it's it just depends what everybody's tolerance for work is, I guess.
We sell to a lot of people that do that for a living. They kind of travel from show to show, and um, our blankets are very popular with those people. Apparently, you get a
Those are
table
nice
full of
blankets.
blankets, and it's a showstopper for sure. People like to, once you touch and feel them too, especially. And with military surplus too, you got to get the quality has to come across somehow on your listing if you're selling it online. It's so much easier when you see a canvas bread bag or something, and you're like, what is that? A shopping bag? It's like the canvas is like this thick. This thing will
Yeah.
last you a lifetime. You can hang off a cliff with it. Um, to get that to come through in just pictures or videos and stuff is kind of difficult.
It's really hard. I mean, there's a few companies that I see on social media, Americana Pipe Dream for one, bring them up again, but they do such a good job with their marketing and building that image for their clientele. I mean, it's a struggle. Like I said, I don't have that creativity, but especially at that volume, I don't know how they
Yeah,
do it, man. Them and a few other companies, Venture Surplus does some really good stuff too.
yeah,
Um, and it's the volume is difficult. And it's quantity or quality for me. It's one or the other. So I try and opt for like one good post a day of some sort or something, because it takes a lot. I mean,
I mean, to make like a good video that's like
mhm.
quality and like can catch people's attention and looks good. I mean, that could take an entire day. And if you're posting one
Yeah,
of those every day, then
and
that's
it's
all
like
you're
a
doing.
reel. It's like a 30 to 60 second video, and it's like all day.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, especially people that don't do much on social media other than just scroll. Like, I don't really know that they know like how much work actually goes into quality content creation. That's hands down probably the biggest chunk of my day every day.
yeah. Which is crazy. You'd think it'd be like sorting goods or filling
Yeah.
orders or whatever, but no, it's
Well,
just
it
that
might be
video
for
I
other people.
posted
I'm
took
just not
half the day.
creative, so other people just it just comes naturally to them. For me, it's like it's like pulling teeth, man.
Well, even if you have good ideas, you still got to get them done.
You got to flesh them out, yeah.
Yeah. And I recently hired somebody. I was like, I need somebody who's like 20 years old, somebody who like grew up on
Yeah.
social media to sort of get that perspective. I'm so used to being like the young person in the industry. Like that's always, I'm like, I'm my dad's kid, like I was a teenager, like doing this stuff.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, like all these
I
businesses
look
are
in the
like,
mirror and I'm like, you see
these
all this gray hair?
guys are like a decade younger than me. I'm not the young guy anymore. What the heck? When
Nope.
did that happen? Uh, so I'm
I need
just
to
trying to
find
play with
somebody to
it.
run my social media that doesn't know what MySpace is.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
The first interview question: do you know what MySpace is? All right, sorry.
Yeah. Like if you know HTML, uh,
Yeah,
you're too old.
yeah. That's, I don't know, man. This TikTok's one of those. You mentioned TikTok, and that's oh. So basically, I don't do anything on TikTok. I'll just take what I post on like reels and stuff on Instagram, and I'll just post them over there. It is what it is. It's just less work. That for
Yeah.
me is the bane of my existence. But then there's other companies. You ran across like Liberty Quartermaster.
Yeah.
Um, they do some good stuff. Like I don't know how he managed to find the time to package people's orders and like on video and stuff for them. Like that's
Yeah. Right.
that's awesome. Like if I had customers would be like, "Hey, can you draw a stick figure in the box or something?" But like I don't have time to go around and film, packaging their orders and stuff. I don't know how he does that. That's awesome though.
That's a really fun thing too, because people are
It
like,
gets them
oh, like,
involved.
yeah, it's like, oh, I get to see my order getting packed like online. That's fun. Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's different.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is different. But yeah, it totally gets people engaged, which is cool. Yeah, I don't know. It probably would make sense to make different content for different platforms, but forget about it. You know, make one good video, it's going to go on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and X. You know,
Well, I'm no expert by any stretch, but what I've discovered is I can take the same video and post on different platforms, and the platform I designed it for, it'll do nothing, and then it'll blow up on YouTube, for instance, or TikTok. If it does well on one platform, it's probably not going to do well on Instagram. It's I don't know enough about it still, so to be able to predict, oh, this one's going to be good because all the ones that I think are good, it's like go nowhere. It's
or
like,
something you think is stupid, is people
and then
love it.
some of the dumbest videos will get 600,000 views or something. You're like,
Where did this
okay,
come from?
yeah,
Yeah, it's funny how it works on different platforms. You know, we had one video recently got like 13 million views on YouTube
yeah.
and like 200 views on TikTok.
Hmm.
Why? I don't know. No.
It's there's so many different variables. It's so crazy. And, I mean, you almost need a team to plan all those variables and stuff. I mean, I don't know. I'm out of my depth. I'm a boomer, from what I've been told. So,
My new ethos is just make good stuff,
yep,
and if it's good, people will like it. You
yep.
know, don't worry about the how it's going to affect the algorithm. You know.
Well, and yeah, and honestly, the number of views actually doesn't. It rarely correlates to the number of sales, anyways. Like I've had videos that do like really, really well, but there's like no sales that are generated from it. And then I've had videos that are like 5,000 views, and the ROI was nuts on it. It's
Yeah,
just I don't know.
yeah. Getting people's attention or like even rage baiting them or something,
Yeah,
not necessarily going to make them want to go to your website and buy stuff. You know.
right.
But hopefully, over time, people will recognize you. They recognize One Thief Surplus. It'll become part of their, little zeitgeist or whatever. And, uh, that's what it's all about, right? Just getting
Mhm.
people to think of you when they think of surplus. And I want to get people thinking about surplus in general. Like, I'm so pumped about what, like, Americana Pipe Dream or like
Mhm.
Commando Store, uh,
Yeah,
like what those guys are doing because
the
they're
kit,
making it
legit
cool,
kits.
you know,
Yeah,
making it cool for young people, like, growing up, I was always looking at this like, this. My dad was the young guy in it when I was a kid, and he was talking about how it's all a bunch of old people that like this stuff, like World War II
people trying
vets.
to relive their heydays.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a different world now, and people like it. People, I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
like it. Other
trendy
people
again.
like it. Yeah, yeah. So you
Yeah,
got to keep that
it is.
going.
Yeah, and it's those companies we talked about. Honestly, are doing so much for you guys too. Y'all are doing so much for the industry. Even the time that you're taking to do this podcast is awesome. It's I was honestly really shocked when you asked me to be on it because I'm like, yeah, well, I got nothing to say that like I'm not that guy. But
Well, I think
it,
it's
it,
just.
it,
I think you are that guy. I think it's awesome that it's like I don't want to say, oh, like anybody can do it, but like, this is such a unique business where you can actually buy something and resell it and have a good reason to do it. If you wanted to get into the toilet paper business, there's no room for you. There's nothing there. You're not going to just buy and sell goods and make a living off of it. But in military surplus, it can be done. And there's a lot of people that are, starting new businesses and getting things going. And, like I say, the more the merrier. I think it's great for everybody. And it's great for people just to have more options. I mean, um, you're in Indiana, right?
Mhm.
Are there other?
Unfortunately, it's cold. By the way,
Unfortunately,
it's been like negative 20 degrees for the last week.
oh my gosh,
It
yeah, that's
sucks.
brutal. I've been to Indiana one time. I got a bunch of family over there, but they're kind of like a side of the family that I'm not too connected with, and they had a
Mhm.
big family reunion, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll go meet my cousins or whatever. And it was great. I had a great time out there. I'll have to do that again, and maybe I'll stop by and
Yeah,
check out your operations whenever that happens.
yeah, absolutely. It's Indiana's really not a bad place. I joke around. I mean, I spent most of my time in Hawaii and Virginia, so you go from like Virginia Beach, or you go from Kaneohe Bay or something like that, and then you go to Indianapolis, and you're like, man, it sucks. It's cold here. There's no beach.
Yeah, hard to beat Hawaii, you know.
Yeah, yeah, they ruined me putting me out there for my first 4 years. Nothing's the same after that.
You're a little spoiled after that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
it's
So, what did you do in the Marines? What was your job there?
so I did a few different things. I started out as an infantryman. I was a mortarman, and then I went to Fast Company, my next enlistment, so Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team. So, like the guys that go to the embassies and reinforce them. So, like Benghazi, should have had a fast platoon there a week before it happened. Um, we did. So when I was in Fast Company, it was during the Arab Spring. So all of the 2011, late 2010, early 2011, and then on through for several years. And so all we did was reinforce embassies after embassy after embassy after embassy. That started getting threatened. But that's kind of what that unit does. It's just you just deploys a platoon, and you got 55 guys or something, and you got a whole suite of kit, and you just pack everything up and go. You know,
To set up like a permanent security there, or to just
no,
reinforce it
it's
for a period of
so
time?
we're a reactionary force. So you're on you live when you're forward deployed. They'll send you to, depending on which company you're in. They'll send you to like Rota, Spain. They'll send you to Bahrain, which is where I went to, and then or Yokosuka, Japan, and that's where your base of operations will be for your deployment. And then you'll either be going places to train foreign nations. So I mean, I trained um, 22 or 23 different foreign nations troops on one deployment. When we weren't doing embassy reinforcements and stuff, your time's always filled with just random make work, basically. But it's to build more rapport and more relationships with those militaries. So the Jordanis, the Bahrainis, communist Chinese, actually, ironically, in Pakistan, of all places, did a whole bunch of stuff like that, and it was one of the most interesting times of my life for sure because you're on your own, you're junior enlisted. We took like 10 dudes to Pakistan, for instance. We were there for a week, and they had 22 different nations there, and all we did was like visit board search and seizure, marksmanship competitions, ground fighting just with each other. All these different foreign militaries and stuff, and you learn a lot about them, and especially your peers or your near peers. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, we've been fighting an insurgency for 20 years, but it's a whole different ballgame when you're looking at a peer or near peer adversary.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it always comes down to relationships, right? Like the military
Yeah.
can't operate well unless they've got good working relationships with all the other nations and
Mm-hmm.
countries that you're working with. It's interesting you said like work or make work, but I think that's as valuable as anything else that the military does. Is just keep that.
You don't see it that way when you're in the infantry and you're one job, in your mind, and you're not doing that particular job. You're like, okay, this sucks. They're just making me do something, so I'm not sitting around. But realistically, once you get older, you can kind of see the bigger picture of there is value here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's hard to step out of the day to day when you're in the thick of things, but yeah, the big picture is definitely there, and somebody's job to communicate that big picture to you too. But I'm sure they
yeah,
probably are stuck in it with you too.
yeah, yeah. It's you toe the party line.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Better to just think about what you're doing instead of why you're doing it sometimes.
But it was a great time. I mean, like I said, I have zero complaints of my time in the military. I mean, they let me do everything I wanted to do and then some. So that's the other thing that makes what I do now a lot easier because it'd be really hard to sell military gear if you're really jaded and angry at the military. Like
Right.
your time in. But for me, there's a lot of like every time because most of the gear that's on the market right now is gear that was issued when I was in, or so like I'm selling the stuff that I used, a lot of it. Um, so it's like every time I pick a piece of this stuff up, I'm like, oh, you know what? Like I have a memory of some time that I use this or something, and it's it's interesting. I'll be sad once we get past that, the GWAT phase and we get into the stuff that I'm like, what is this? Like
Right. How does this work exactly?
I have to Google what this is and how it's used and whatever. The knowledge just isn't inherently there. So yeah, it'll be a sad day.
Well, I'm sure there's still quite a bit of time left with that. We don't. I don't touch American stuff that often.
Hmm.
It's just kind of a different market.
Hmm.
I've thought about it, maybe going to some auctions and trying to get into the American stuff, but we sort of stick with what we know, which is the European stuff, and bringing that
Hmm.
over. And obviously, I have to do a lot of research and figure out how stuff was used. And I wasn't in the military, and even if I wasn't in the European militaries, or I wasn't in the Belgian
Yeah.
army or the French army or whatever. Um, but there's a lot of guys, in the warehouse here too that just love this stuff, and they know a lot more about it than I do. I brought
The
John with me to the trade show, and you were chatting with him for a
Mhm.
long time, and I was like, man, they're speaking a different language.
Yeah. So for me, the European stuff I'm not really familiar with. So I look at it like, okay, if I was going to use this pouch, what are some of the things that I would use it for? And that's how I end up selling this stuff myself, is because I go, okay, well, I would put it to use this way, and then I'd come up with a couple different ways. I couldn't tell you most of the time like what it was originally designed for, but I can tell you it fits a 2-quart canteen really well, and there's not too many Molly based 2-quart canteen pouches, for instance.
Yeah,
And then I've discovered, for me personally, I guess that's the people would rather have that knowledge than the history side of things. The history side of things is interesting, but unless they're getting into it from the historical perspective, and my customer base really isn't, they all use their gear. They want to know what they can use it for because they're not
yeah.
familiar with it either.
And they're probably not deploying with it. They're going to use it backpacking or whatever. And
Yeah, exactly.
you know, what kind of does it fit an Algene bottle? Does it fit a clean canteen or whatever?
Hmm.
That's probably more important than what mortar round was supposed to fit in there originally.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's funny. There's people that go, this is military quality stuff, which really does mean something. And then there's other guys that were like, my gear sucked. Military quality means crap. They just go with the cheapest bidders. I'm like, well, you were using that stuff so
Way
much
harder.
more than anyone will ever use anything, and it stood up to that at least for a couple of years, and that's amazing.
You know, you had asked me how I got my start, and it was selling Philbies, the Marine Corps Family of Improved Load Bearing stuff. It was a pack that replaced the one that I was issued, and I got so much pushback on social media initially. Everybody telling me what a piece of crap it was, and I'm like, I didn't use it. That was coming out as I was getting out,
Hmm.
so I never got issued one, and I started doing my research. I'm like, this thing was designed by Mystery Ranch. It's produced by quality manufacturers. Mystery Ranch doesn't produce because they don't have the capability to produce the numbers that the Marine Corps needs. But it's Eagle Industries. It's proper. It's not some fly by night company. And then
Right.
um, the issue with the frames breaking was the big thing, and it turns out they fixed that really quickly with the Gen 2 frames. And I've never seen a broken Generation 2 frame, which is saying something, because the Marine Corps is incredibly destructive on their gear. Now, ironically, I have seen my first broken frames, but they come from the Army with their Molly 4000 ruck, and they jump with those. And apparently, the Army actually is better than the Marines at something. I didn't know that, but I have learned that they are a little bit more destructive on their gear when they jump. So, just a little inter service rivalry there.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was something that was really fun, because I've sold thousands of those Philby rucks with the Gen 2 frames, and I was buying them directly from Down East Innovations. And I'm like, I don't have a problem. I'll give you a 2-year guarantee on the frame, because I know you're not going to break it. If the Marines can't break it jumping out of helos and packing 1,000 of them on the belly of an airplane or whatever, then you're not going to break it. So
Yeah, it'll survive a lifetime of backpacking trips, no
yeah.
problem. Yeah. Well, Luke, I really appreciate you spending some time with me. I want to keep doing this with more folks in the industry, just to kind of, I don't know, shed some light on the people behind the
Mhm.
companies and what kind of cool stuff's happening. And we'll do this again, and maybe one day I'll go out to Indiana and check out what you got going on there. And if you ever want to come out to California,
I was about to say the weather out there sounds a lot better to me right now.
we'd love to have you. It'd be cool. You can
Yeah,
check out our
that's on
warehouse.
my list. I have met so many awesome surplus companies out there, and just at the ANME show that are out in California, and I'm like, man, you guys have it made out here. you get all those military bases out there, and there's so much more gear available to them. I basically started a surplus store in a desert of surplus, to be honest. Like everything's got to come from one coast or the other.
Right. You're sort of in the middle of nowhere there in
Hmm.
Indiana, but the place to be.
Yeah, that's why I don't have a brick and mortar.
Yeah, right.
So I genuinely appreciate the opportunity, man. It was the highlight of my week for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll do it again.
Yeah,
Thank you, Luke.
absolutely. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bye.